なんだあの光。わからん。誰が声が出ない。誰か一体どれだけ時が経ったんだ。
Hello anime lovers, it's Nats from Aninats channel. I'm gonna bring you some cool anime scenes, compilation, and reviews from animes that I personally watched. So, let's get started. This time I'm gonna bring you a science anime, but don't worry, it's not gonna be boring science lesson, as this anime is about a brilliant boy who will use science to bring back civilization from the world that mysteriously turned to Stone Age. The story begins with the daily life of Senku, who likes to experiment in his lab. His friend called Taiju has a crush to his friend called Yuzuriha. At one day, Taiju decides to confess his feelings to Yuzuriha, when suddenly interrupted by a ray of green light. The light shines on the entire world, petrifying any human it touches. The world immediately falls into disarray, only animals are spared. Taiju notices he is still conscious. He vows to stay awake until he can confess his feelings. Time passes, days, decades, centuries, goes by until the world plunges back into the Stone Age. One day, Taiju suddenly breaks free from his petrification. Taiju then notices a message carved into the tree. Senku then show up and says he's waiting for him. Senku then explained to him that 3,700 years have passed since they turned to stone. Senku reveals he was counting seconds while being petrified until he broke free. He takes Taiju to his base where they begin to invent tools for survival in the stone world. The next day they go to a cave where Senku explains that the reason they were the first to wake up has something to do with the cave. Senku explains that the liquid dripping from the cave is nitric acid, which might be responsible for corroding their petrification. Senku has already started experimenting with the liquid, but hasn't succeeded. They then decide to make alcohol using wild grapes. Senku handles the brainy stuff, while Taiju do the manual labor. They keep producing the liquid for experimenting. After a year they succeeded in creating a mixture they used to depetrify a bird. Taiju decide to revive Yuzuriha with the fluid. He then tries to take her petrified body back to their camp. However, on their way, some lions begin chasing them. The lions keep up with the chase. This makes Senku aware that they have to do something to survive. Senku then decides to use the revival fluid on a strong fighter, so he can save them. The fighter known as Tsukasa breaks out of his petrification, and defeats the lions with brute force. He tells them he'll protect them henceforth. At the base they introduce themselves to each other. Tsukasa volunteers to be the hunter of the team. His amazing hunting skill enables the team to eat better meat now. Senku tells the group they need calcium carbonate in order to move on with their advanced experiment. He tells Taiju to pick up seashells which they would crush to obtain its carbonate. Tsukasa then tells Senku a story about his childhood, where he was gathering seashells to make necklace for his sister. He was beaten by a man who accused him of stealing the shells. After the story, Tsukasa smashes the head of a petrified person. He tells Senku he must not revive the corrupt adults, who would eventually taint their free paradise. Senku disagrees with him, saying he was going to revive every single person in the world. Senku realizes that Tsukasa is bad news, so he plots to keep him under control by hiding the secret of the revival fluid. However, Taiju suddenly runs and saying he has gotten a full pot of fluid from the cave. Senku has no choice but to tell Tsukasa about the cave. While he goes to the cave, Senku uses the opportunity to carry out the mixing, so Tsukasa doesn't see him do it. They quickly pour the processed revival fluid on Yuzuriha, and she breaks out of the rock. Tsukasa comes back to confront the group, who now take him as a murderer. Taiju dashes to attack him, but Tsukasa manages to land a powerful hit on Taiju. Tsukasa notes that he doesn't want to hurt them. Tsukasa decides not to fight, so he leaves the group and heads into the forest. Senku then beginning to destroy their base. He tells the group they need to make a weapon that will be able to stop Tsukasa. They set out on a journey to find raw materials for their weapon. The group arrives at the peak of a mountain. Here Senku tells them they have arrived to obtain gunpowder. Senku has obtained sulfur, charcoal, and potassium nitrate, which are the materials needed to make gunpowder. They start processing the materials together. Taiju accidentally sets off a spark which causes an explosion. Senku then notices a smoke signal from the forest, and realizes that there are other people apart from them in the stone world. They decide to increase the explosion to send their own signal, but end up revealing their position to Tsukasa. He quickly catch up and take Yuzuriha hostage as bargaining chip to obtain the secret of the revival fluid. Senku knows he would be killed if he tells Tsukasa the formula. However, he tells him anyway. Tsukasa gives a condition to spare Senku's life if he swears to abandon science, and let the stone world pure from science. Senku refuses Tsukasa's proposal and tells him to make his death painless. Tsukasa assures him that he'll hit the cervical nerve in one go to make it painless. Taiju runs to Tsukasa, but it's too late. He then uses the gunpowder to make diversion and escape with Yuzuriha and Senku's body. Taiju tries different approaches to revive Senku but fails. He then recalls a childhood memory, and realizes that Senku would never actually sacrifice himself for anyone. Taiju starts searching for clues. They recalled that Senku was always cracking his neck all along. They take a look at his body and discover a petrified part on his neck that actually protects him from Tsukasa's hit. The revival fluid is known to heal the areas that are petrified, so they apply some in hopes that it would heal his neck. The next morning they discover that Senku has come back to life. Senku explained to the others that since Tsukasa thinks he is dead, he intends to stay that way. He ordered Taiju and Yuzuriha to infiltrate his camp as spies. Senku explains that he will go to seek allies with the mysterious people that sent the smoke signal. Meanwhile, Tsukasa confronts a girl in the woods. She attacks him instantly, but Tsukasa easily blocks her. The girl tells him she witnessed him capture Yuzuriha and kill Senku, so she thinks Tsukasa a bad person. Tsukasa realizes that she could pose a danger to his goals, so he makes a tree fall on her. Senku rushes to her location and finds her trapped under a huge tree, so he begins crafting a rope which he uses to lift the log off her and set her free. The girl introduces herself as Kahaku. She tells Senku she would help him defeat Tsukasa by introducing him to more allies. The next day she goes to fetch some hot spring water to deliver to her village. She hasn't recovered from her battle with Tsukasa, so Senku offers to help her and makes a transportation to help them move the pot down the hill. They arrived at the entrance of the village. Senku was surprised that so many people are already living there. He is suddenly attacked by two boys but shielded by Kahaku, who tells them that he saved her life. The boys called Kinro and Jinro explain that it's against the village rules to allow strangers in. Senku then makes a lot of bubbles using soap, making the warriors confused as they have never seen such a thing before. Chrome appears on the scene introducing himself as a sorcerer. He figures out that the bubbles are no threat. He then confronts Senku and going to duel of sorcery. Chrome makes a fire and begins his sorcery by changing its colors, but Senku isn't impressed by a simple flame test. Chrome moves on to his next trick where he rubs his hands on a ball of sulfur to create electricity, but Senku takes the ball to create a higher voltage of electricity. He is impressed that Chrome was able to achieve so much without modern knowledge. Senku turns Chrome shed into his base. Inside he discovers Chrome has picked out all sorts of minerals already. Senku notices a lot of medicinal plants and Chrome explains that it is all to cure Ruri, who is Kahaku's sister, that's seriously ill. Senku explains to Chrome how the world of technologies worked before the petrification, so Chrome decides to cooperate if Senku can find a way to cure Ruri. In the village, the news of Senku's arrival starts spreading. They tell Kahaku's father, the village chief, that it was Kahaku who brought in the stranger. Senku explained that he is going to make antibiotics that can cure almost any disease. He explains the steps necessary for them to be able to create the drug. The group then heads to collect the necessary items. Shortly after, a watermelon kid called Sui Ka shows up and offers to help. They welcomed her as they need all the manpower they can get. After gathering the items, Senku makes a furnace for melting it and the group begins to blow it intensely. However, their effort is wasted because their number could not generate enough heat needed to melt the iron. They decide to recruit more people to generate the necessary manpower. Shui Ka has given the mission to head into the village to determine what would attract people. She returns to give a report revealing that the villagers are tired of eating grilled fish every day. On hearing this, Senku decides to cook for the villagers. He and the group starts gathering ingredients needed. Senku transforms the millet flour into ramen and the group enjoys their noon meal. They move on to make a food stall that attracts the villagers. Here they serve the ramen to everyone. Kahaku notices an unfamiliar face, so she confronts him, asking if he works for Tsukasa. Senku recognizes him as Asagiri Gen, a popular con artist before the Stone World. Senku doesn't care why Gen is in the village, as long as he works for him. Senku succeeds in making the villagers work for him as well as making Gen, who calls himself a mentalist. Gen admits that he works for Tsukasa. He tells him that he was sent to confirm Senku's death. However, he has a change of heart after seeing Senku's inventions. He explains that he wants to live an easy life and Senku's science is the only way to achieve it. Senku then tells the group they are going to make a generator. The next day, they start creating tools for the project. After everything ready, the party climb up the mountain. Here they use Kinro's spear as a lightning rod and able to create a strong magnet. With the magnet, they successfully construct the generator so the village can have electricity. After electricity available, Senku then tells Chrome he will start make plans for making the antibiotic. The next morning, Gen heading back to Tsukasa secretly. The group is worried and tries to go after him, but Senku stopped them, as he is convinced Gen won't betray him. They previously made a deal where Senku would make Gen's favorite drinks, which is cola, in exchange for his cooperation. As agreed, Gen reports to Tsukasa that Senku is dead. Senku informed Chrome that they need a very important material to make drugs. He explains that the material needed is glass. After acquiring the needed materials, Senku continues the glass-making project, but they fail each time. An old village craftsman then comes and offers to help. With his help they successfully make a lot of glassware to make the drugs. Senku then leads the group to gather the ingredient for the drugs. Finally they arrive at their destination, an emerald green spring that Senku explains to contain hydrogen sulfide and sulfur dioxide. They notice the birds instantly dead after approaching the sulfuric acid. Senku then goes back to the village and make a gas mask to collect the ingredients, since it's poisonous. Senku finally obtained the sulfuric acid needed to create the drugs. With the help of the group collecting the other materials, Senku begins the process and steps for making the antibiotics. After several experiments, Senku finally managed to finish the process and create the drugs. He and the group then try to give it to Ruri, but directly opposed by Ruri's father, the village chief, because he still don't trust Senku and his science. On the other hand, Ruri believes in Senku and her sister Kahaku, and willingly to take the drugs. Senku then examines Ruri and keep producing the drugs. After several medication and treatments by Senku and his drugs, Ruri finally cured from her sickness. Ruri's friends and father deeply grateful with Senku. The village chief then believes in Senku and declare that he is very well accepted in the village. And the joy continues throughout the entire village. If you enjoy the story, you definitely should watch the entire anime, as the battle between Senku's science against Tsukasa's strength will even get more exciting and tense. The story will also get more interesting as Senku will construct many more advanced technologies from the basics in this Stone Age. That's it for this time video, and if you enjoyed the story, don't forget to subscribe. Thanks and see you in my next video.